To 27 Degrees SAG. I'm your host, Kimla Lowe, and I have a wonderful guest with me this evening. I just want to say she has so many accolades, I don't know where to begin. She's been my spiritual friend for years, and it is just such a pleasure and a treat. And I'm so proud of how she's just blossomed and has just added more and more into her energy field. And I feel like we should just bring her on right away. So without further ado, put your hands together for Amanda Melissa Dodd. Welcome, Amanda. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I always love when we get together and we catch up. It's been a journey since we first met each other and started out. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's been a wonderful road just to kind of keep track of each other and see what you're doing next and how it's going. When we get into a spiritual journey, first of all, there's always like a gateway. There's always like a gateway attractor that kind of brings us in and just kind of opens up, the gates to the yellow brick road. And you have done so much. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what attracted you to study all this wonderful things?
Goodness me. I will say that Reiki is the gateway drug. And with it, a lot of things open. But I was open even before that. I was open as a child. I think last time we were on air together, I had shared how one of my first memories, I was 2 years old. That was when I'd had my first Archangel encounter. So really, when most kids close around 6 or 7 years old, I just didn't. I stayed open, and so there were mediumship experiences all throughout, angel intuition experiences, and I just didn't recognize them until much later. But after Reiki was when I really began to put names to things and energies and beings. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel as though you always had healing hands and energy in your hands, even when you were young?
Oh, yes. I'm one of those people that I could sit on a bus and before I know it, I would get someone coming and just wanting to share their whole life. I have one of those faces. I could be in the grocery line and someone will come and just bring me their energy to transmute. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that feeling. For me, it was always that I would touch someone or they would grab my hand or something and there it goes, and I would know exactly what was going on. It was kind of like a download of their personal, energy field and their challenges and and even the inside of them. But of course, I was brought up to a wonderful level after I started, training with the Chinese masters and doing all of that. But when I take a look at your bio, I mean, unbelievable. Reiki, emotion code, and body code, and you're a certified clinical hypnotist and transpersonal psychology training you had, and you're a life coach, and you create dynamic sessions with NLP. A lot of people don't know what that is. I do, but could you explain it for the rest of the group that's listening? A lot of times people say, oh, the short version, NLP, I did this and I did that. But I don't think people really know what that is.
So NLP, which is actually standing for Neuro Linguistic Programming, was developed by, I want to say, 3 different people. I'm not fully in touch with the history. And essentially what they did was they looked at people with high success rates. They looked at mentors who were thriving and doing well, and they began to examine their habits, their behaviors, their beliefs, who they surrounded themselves with, and they began to model themselves after them. And in so doing, they learned a lot of different ways to help people elevate themselves, to really perform and function in a way that was going to take them in a higher vibration for their highest good. So we can make a series of shifts. Now, neurolinguistic means the way we look at words and derive meaning, our beliefs about our words, and learning to use those to create energy shifts within the body. So a client can come to me, and the minute we're sitting down at the table, the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at their body. Are they pulling inward? Are they hunched? Are they looking down? If they're talking about confidence, well, sure, the first thing we're going to do is great. Let's align that spine. Let's bring the shoulders back and down. Let's get you present, looking at the world face on. So you can link kind of emotions and behaviors to their physical posture. You can create kind of anchors and like keywords to help someone then embody a different energy. It's very, very powerful, especially within coaching, but then also within hypnosis. That's when it just gets pure magic. And I love it.
Can everybody be hypnotized?
We do it naturally several times a day. If you're psychic, intuitive, or a medium, you're doing it even more. So, hypnosis is a natural state. We're just deepening in the brain waves. We're getting into theta, we're getting into delta. Where it becomes hypnotherapy is when we're doing it on purpose, with intention, with a goal, wanting to make a shift. That's the difference. So, it's when you go to a movie and you are surrounded and you are looking at the screen and the room starts to get smaller, you stop noticing the people in front of you, the rows behind you kind of disappear, and you're focused all the way in. That's hypnosis. You're completely focused on one element.
Wow. I'm hypnotized already.
We often are. And if someone's in anxiety, well, aren't they in hypnosis too? They just didn't choose the most highest embodiment of it.
Wow. I never thought of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's amazing. So when you're working with these shifts, and I know a lot of people, I know a lot of people that use the benefits of the NLP in their careers, for their career goals, and I've run across so many people that have used the benefits of this to really reach amazing career goals in this kind of thing. To work on, and I want to talk about a little bit about shadow work and a little bit about trauma and a little bit about some things that I know you do, which, it comes from the shamanic world, and about soul retrieval. This is big. I had a lot of different experiences about soul retrieval and helping and doing that and not really removing trauma, more or less gaining their whole spirit back. Can we talk a little bit about the benefits of doing a soul retrieval, and is it only for the shamans to do, or can anyone do it?
We all have the same hardware. It's the same thing I say to my mediums and my psychics and intuitives. They come when they want to enhance their abilities. We all have the same hardware. The only thing I do different is I'm using hypnosis to help them get to that state of trance a little easier. So I don't have to use a drum, I don't have to use a rattle. I'm taking you to the places within yourself where everything is accessible. And because we all have the same hardware, all I'm doing is opening up the software, helping you decide where the play button is going to be and how you press it. So, yes, it's accessible to all of us. And we don't have to be any of those titles or things in order to get the benefits. My spouse, who is not a very spiritual person, who's just like my grounding rod, he wanted to actually just release tobacco. He had a 20-year chewing tobacco habit. He finally decided last September that he was ready to release it and let it go. And the most astounding thing happened. In order for him to release the habit, we ended up actually doing soul retrieval. He needed to reclaim a part of himself. He was using the tobacco to fill a portion where his soul, his essence had been lost or misplaced or stolen. We'll say stolen, even though it sounds a little scary. It's not. It's something that we do. Our souls are wired to survive. We are made in a way that is so fantastic. We're made to thrive. And so we can actually cast off a part of our soul when we deeply love someone, when we care about someone. And at some point, we just need to recollect that energy. And so I guided him through, and with one session, he was done. He never picked up tobacco again. Now he's saving his money to be a blacksmith. Far more entertaining.
And more creative. Yeah.
Yes. And
Oh,
he
wow.
didn't have the energy to be creative before. He didn't have, and another funny thing. So with hypnosis, something I say is each client wins the lottery. It's a question of how much they're going to win because we never know. Alan has always had a hard time waking up in the morning. He's the kind of guy who would sleep until 11 or noon, and I would be up thinking, what is this man doing? He's sleeping his life away. Feeling a little resentful sometimes, as a wife. And after the hypnosis, the wildest thing happened. He woke up the next morning at 7 a.m. without an alarm. This was a man that would hit snooze 2, 3 times and still be groggy. He woke up, he was fully alert. He's been doing it every day since.
Wow.
So that was an unexpected bonus, which hypnosis always seems to have when we work at those deep levels of the soul.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But you know what? It's a shifting and an alignment, right? That he became, he got all the air in his tires so he could go faster and longer. This is such important work, especially for, I want to say, people who are attached to their loved ones and they have suffered the trauma of loss. And no matter if it is even, if it's, someone you've been with a long time, but even if we're talking about having a miscarriage or perhaps someone that you haven't seen in a very, very long time, or a family member that has passed away. And have you seen the benefits of this kind of work through soul retrieval?
I wouldn't say soul retrieval necessarily. I feel like at that point it goes into different realms. So I actually offer a service called Visiting a Loved One in Heaven. I do it individually, I do it in groups, and it's highly beneficial for people who are grieving or who've had loss. And actually they just get to connect. So again, using that same hardware, I just boot up the software, and then they get to have their own experience with their loved one to kind of come to terms with the grief, the challenge, and reconnect with the love. We always forget the love, and it's still there, it's still present. And reconnecting them to that is just so potent and powerful.
Yeah, I really think that is the best work. I really do. It's not something that you can go to, your big box store and buy off the shelf. It's a fabulous, fabulous gift that you can be a part of, and that's fabulous work for you and the people that are connecting. And so, for going through this, sometimes we always say, oh, I've got to put up more boundaries, especially light workers, because we just don't, we seem to get caught up in no boundaries, and we seem to just kind of give, and then when we come to the conclusion that we need to operate in the 3D world, and we need to charge for our services and our time, then we get slammed for doing that. And then you always hear people say, well, you've got to put up your boundaries. Put up your boundaries and ground yourself, and so that you can be a better channel or maybe a more stable force of power. But what I've witnessed all the time is, grounding yourself is very powerful, especially for light workers, empaths, mediums, psychics. But also, you have this awareness that there truly isn't any boundaries. And you can go in the underworld, you can go, to the many dimensions, you can go to different planets, you can go to different universes, you can do this astral travel, which is something that is something that I think as humanity, we're moving more and more towards that level that everyone can experience that and take in more light and more information that really kind of dissolves a lot of the old belief patterns and the religious roots that people have as well. How do you balance out, Amanda, with the work you do? How do you stay grounded other than your husband? But how do you stay grounded and yet, explore no boundaries?
You learn to identify what works for you. And for each of us, acknowledging just that it's different. For me, it is a non negotiable. I need an Epsom salt bath with essential oils at least 2 times, maybe 3 times a week. So any night I can get in that tub, I am in there. That is my place where I go do my healing, where I recenter on myself. And it's a blend. In the past, I used to burn out all the time. And that was actually why I began Reiki, was because I was constantly burned out. I was a caregiver. I needed something different. These days, it's so much less frequent. But now, as I'm juggling like 3 different offices, I'm starting to bump up against it a little bit. And it's like, oh, right. I'm going to have to just be very, very present with myself and acknowledging, when I'm doing things that my spirit just doesn't want to do, and saying no. So I think less about boundaries, more about honoring yourself and where you are. And there are times when I am called to give and when I am just called to provide. And for whatever reason, I trust that that's what spirit wants. And then there are times when I'm resourced and I receive unexpected gifts. And so it all kind of just is in flow. So I focus on very much being in flow, being very present for myself and for others. And that
Right.
helps. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's one of these things where a lot of times, you know, um, light workers or just you know, um, being mom and just giving so much energy to get the children on their feet and in this kind of world, just keeping them healthy. And when you get to be, older, you've got the caregiving of the parents and the older generation, and it's like you give this tug of war going on. There's not much left. And then your body is also going through menopausal shifts, and you are also going through your own shifting. So there's a lot of pushing and a lot of pulling there.
Yeah.
And I think you are so right on about being aware of the value of you and your life, and um, that value becomes something that you treasure, and sometimes you do have to protect it, and sometimes you have to allow yourself to kind of move into your own different shifts or your own different experiences and things like that. And so you were talking about essential oils. Now I know you do that as well.
We could probably spend the hour talking about things I do and the things that I haven't told anybody I do.
Like toe reading. She actually gave me a toe reading. It was so interesting. She has done it all. She's just programmed for it all. It's really quite amazing, quite amazing.
It's
But talk
wild. Yeah.
talk about essential oils.
I love essential oils. What I love about them is kind of like singing bowls and tuning forks. They've all got their own frequency. They've all got their own vibration. So tonight, I don't wear perfume anymore. I generally don't put anything that has chemicals in my body. It just doesn't work for me. So often as a scent, I choose oils. And so depending on the frequency that I want to capture or that I want to transmute to those around me, that's how I choose. So as I
Right.
was thinking about today, it's like, what do I want to bring today? What energy do I need? And it's like, oh, today is Magnolia Day. Today's a little bit of Madagascar vanilla and a little bit of
Ooh,
red mandarin, little spicy, sweet, um, fully empowered.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you were to coach and advise and support those who would like to open up their intuition a little more and become more aware of their limitless boundaries on up leveling a little bit more. Would you start with essential oils, or what would you recommend? What are the first steps that
Hmm.
you would recommend?
I would say hypnosis every time. But I do also have my own blend that I make. You're not going to be able to see this, but I make custom blends and I make sprays. And so this is a spray that I make for myself for my intuitive work in between sessions. When I want to align, center, ground my energy,
Mhm.
anytime I need to just recollect myself and come home and remember that I'm a sovereign being and,
Mhm.
advocate for myself. When we were talking about boundaries and everything before and balancing the empty versus full cup, that's a huge part of it. Having sovereignty and boundaries and advocating for yourself first. So definitely I start there. And then essential oils are very powerful to go along the way. I don't do as much consulting with them as much as I would like to. I feel like for me, they just really help me sustain myself. I do have a couple of people who are like, okay, Amanda, I'm out of spray, like make a batch for me, won't you? That happens. But mostly it's through hypnosis. And I love to work with the subconscious. I love to work with the subconscious because it is what sustains us. It's what pumps your blood. It's what keeps you breathing. When you want to move, you don't think, okay, I'm going to have to, engage my core and lift my thighs off the seat and then bend my knees and then straighten. No, you just think, I want to go do this. And your body follows suit. And so we talk to those parts of the person. And sometimes there are very real things that need to be released. I had one mediumship client who had a indigo blue band around her eyes. And so we went into a deeper state of hypnosis, began to do the work. And I said, okay, what is this blockage for you? Out came a portion of her that was an 11-year-old girl who remembered what it felt like to be different and to be ostracized. And so she had placed a energetic blindfold across her third eye to stay safe.
Oh,
And so I began to negotiate that for her. Well, you're an adult woman now. You're a sovereign, independent, advocating woman now. You're more capable than you ever were before. You're safe to release this. And after that, she just took off. She started her own Reiki practice. Now she works with people as a medium. And it's beautiful to know that that's all it took for her to get a launch and get out there.
oh, wow. So subconsciously, this to me is illusionary what we're doing, and there what you're really considering, as the real deal is your subconscious and what's going on there. Um, when you do have a session and you are helping people to reach their subconscious level, um, you seem to be so tuned into people than going through a program where you lead them through something, and it just kind of seems to me, like you're talking to yourself, but you seem to be so aware of
Mhm.
people, and really, can you see the blockages other than those bands? I mean, I see things inside people as well, but you seem to be so tuned in, and it can have, you can have blockages right at any age,
Oh yeah.
right?
And at any time, we pick them up, we drop them off. Our energy is always ever shifting, and we're only one choice away from letting something go and pulling in something we want, something we're excited about, something that brings us to life.
Absolutely. That's so cool. That's awesome. So, when we talk about everything else that you have done, it's just kind of crazy. But talking about mediumship and talking, mediumship, I've been doing that for years and years. I think I held my first seance when I was 6 years old. My cousin reminded me the other day. But when we talk about when someone passes away, one thing that I am really trying to help people become aware of is that transitioning really needs to be celebrated and really needs to be supported. And also, there's nothing to be afraid of in that kind of a realm, in that kind of a moment, and just a whole different way we look at what we call death. Well, what are your thoughts about that?
I have always had an awareness that I believed reincarnation was true. It's always been there. It always made sense to me that we're going to have multiple opportunities to explore and to do things. And then from the scope of hypnotherapy and past life regression, and then life between lives, my perspective has changed so much. I mean, there was always the bias of being a medium, and I think that's why I always believed in reincarnation. Because it's just like, well, okay, if this person's transitioned, how am I still engaging with this consciousness? How am I still able to connect and to know? And how are they still keeping up on current events? And believe me, they do. Sometimes they have things to say about it too. So it's wild. And I feel like when I think about, if I was to give my purpose one word, and I received this word a long time ago when I did advanced mediumship training. Rita Berkowitz did this amazing Akashic Records opening meditation, and she had each of us find our purpose as a medium. When I asked, I was a little disappointed. I expected to hear, well, you're a medium, you're an empath. And that's not what I got. What I got was, your purpose is transcendence. And I'm looking at Archangel Uriel and I'm like, you're kidding, right? Like, you're going to explain this? What do you mean transcendence? What do you want me to do with this? And
Wow.
as always, in his light, he said, well, you'll see. I could tell you, but you'll never make it all the way. If I tell you, you're going to have to just wait and see. And he was right, because I never imagined doing past life regression. Even when I started hypnosis, I was a bit of a child. I kind of snubbed up my nose and thought, I have enough with this lifetime. Why do I want to do past life work? In all my naiveness, that was, real cute. And now it's at a point, it's like, because we carry fragments, we carry energy, we are still impacted by things for whatever reason at a vibrational level. Sometimes we bring in some of the positives and some of the skills we had, we can embody even more deeply now. We can resource ourselves to pull in abilities that we previously had for our benefit now. And we can release fears and traumas and things that are holding us back. And that very much affects now. So I've busted through the naivety there. It's wild. It's wild, and it's ever unfolding. So transcendence to me is just bringing down what we are, because we are so much more than we know we are. We are infinitely more powerful and more potent than we are allowed to believe, or that we acknowledge ourselves to be. And so for me, transcendence is, yes, it's mediumship. It's bringing other people to mediumship, It's past life regression. It's life between lives, where they get to acknowledge, meet, and know their soul to get clear answers on purpose. Before you
Well,
talk
let's talk
about
about that a little bit. You know, what between lives? What happens between lives? What goes on? What do we do? Where do we go? Who do we hang with?
we have soul groups who typically we travel with for a very long time, and we might be at different levels, and we might kind of like imagine a stage, and we're going to be performing a play. Various people are signing up for different roles. Okay, I'm going to play the lead. I am here to practice transcendence. Who is going to help me? I need someone who is going to wake me up to the fact that I am more than I know or believe. Okay, someone steps forward, is willing to play that role. Who is going to be someone who shows up and tests my ability so that I learn to trust myself? Okay, someone else signs up for that role, and that's how we support each other. And it can be very different between incarnations, which is what's fascinating. And the way things are on the other side is then the clients then get to know, oh, you know what? This is just a snapshot in time. This is just a tiny photo, a still image of my entire being, of my essence, of everything I am. And some of the most beautiful things that happen. I had one client. She was developing mediumship, and she wanted to work on some challenges. And it just organically came out that we went to Life Between Lives. During the session, I caught it on camera. There was light streaming in behind her, and it came as like giant wings. And right at that moment, I was having her meet her soul. She got her soul's name. She learned her soul's purpose. And the light coming through was just wild. And it's like, that's what she's experiencing inside. It's
Oh, wow. That's
awe-striking.
amazing.
The peace that she felt after knowing herself in that way helps her now to manage all kinds of challenges. Now she's like, you know what? That person who slighted me, that's just a snapshot. It's not going to define who I am. It's not going to define my ability or what I can do. And if we all knew that, just imagine the vibration of Earth at that moment.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is truly remarkable. Truly remarkable. Helping people realize who they are and how much power that we each and every one of us can develop, and that I think we have been held back. Is there a lot of resentment when people come up and go, why weren't we told this? Why and who is responsible for not giving us the real deal here? I mean, do you ever have that going on?
Surprisingly not. And I think that it's because when we finally get there, we finally have that experience, we're so in awe. And that clear knowing comes in, and it's like, this is irrefutable. This is who I've always been. This is who I've always been meant to be. And it's enough. And then in that moment, the clients realize I'm whole. I've always been whole, even if I didn't see it. Before, you had mentioned how I work with people in grief, someone who's potentially lost a child early. I would say life between lives. You get to go back to the soul group, find out the contracts. You get to meet the council and say, what was I to learn here? Why did we not go further? And actually have more understanding and catharsis.
Right.
Yeah.
That begins the healing, and and the understanding, and also the gift. Um, sometimes they have to experience a very short term and the loss themselves, but also they have to experience what it is. I know sometimes they're a part of a whole collective that is working on, let's say, a cure or a scientific push that they're a part of, and they've asked to come through you so that they can push humanity towards solving us, finding a solution. And then all of a sudden, you feel good about yourself. You're like, wow, I went from feeling so horrible that it was my fault. I did something that I didn't know, or I was responsible for this. And now all of a sudden, they come away with this wonderful realization that they're like a hero. That, wow, here I thought, it was something I ate, or it was something in, my genetic background, or, I was carrying too much stress at the time, or whatever that was. And when you turn that perspective around and you empower the process, it is, like you said, absolutely amazing, how you can go forward and heal that trauma, and go through that. When you work with, let's just say, health challenges, and you probably work with a lot of them, I'm sure. But when you work with health challenges, and you find out why or where the blockage is, or whatever that is, do you combine your Reiki then as well as your hypnosis?
So I do actually offer hypnotic Reiki, and
Oh,
so I wouldn't say for all things, but for some things. Yeah. What I enjoy even further, though, is taking the client in hypnosis to then have access to Reiki themselves.
oh.
Yeah, you get to show them things like that and make it more accessible. Like I said, we have access to so much, and we just are in the habit of not knowing. And once we do, the whole world opens up and changes.
Do you think we are all meant to be healers?
I believe that we all have healing capabilities, and there are those who are natural savants, of course, but we all have the same hardware at the end of the day. And for some of us, it's just learning to open up the software. Yeah.
So when you say open up the software, what does that mean?
It means having intentionality, knowing how to access your abilities, releasing any blocks or challenges, and deciding what the play button looks like for you and when you'd like to press it.
Oh, okay. Well,
And
that's
it's often that easy. It's often, for a lot of us, we think, oh, mediumship, psychic, intuitive. Oh, these are hard things. These aren't for everybody. And it's like, if you knew how mundane it actually is, you'd be like, oh, I do that all the time. I didn't know.
yeah, I do that all the time.
That's
Huh.
right.
You
Yeah.
know,
I
yeah,
do that when I grocery shop. Didn't
yeah,
know.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's funny, but people have intuition. They have things like that. I have so many clients who are extremely intuitive, and I think more than, I don't know, 80% is I'm validating it.
Yeah.
I'm validating it. And I think that's where you're talking about the soul groups come in. And you need a tribe, you need a group around you to kind of give that, yes, that's exactly, you're right on. That's what you're doing. Stay the course, or um, we'll help you pivot. You're off program. You need to get back on. And I think that's a really great thing. And we are so lucky in in our realm now that we can do this platform, the show, that we can have groups and we're not going to be burned at the stake or driven out of town, or anything like that. And I still love to practice many things having to do with the Catholic religion, um, and be a group of that awareness. For me, I was brought up with that. I feel safe and comfortable. I know my prayers. I know my saints. I know my angels. I know all of that. And I do know, the other side of religion as well. And I kind of grew up going, but that doesn't make sense. And so I would always ask my mom, is that a man-made law? Or is that in the Bible? Or is that a commandment? Because that seems to me like a man-made law. Did a man make that?
That was very intuitive as a child.
So I found myself dividing a lot of things that were written into the doctrine of, the Catholic Church that came from, man-made bishops and popes and things like that. Other than what was really at the root of the energy work and the intention and the different realms and really clearly why we are on the planet and how to proceed, in the easiest way we possibly can. I mean, they gave us a little preview as to a plan and GPS as to how to do it. And then we just, oh no, we can do this better if we just do this or that. You know what I mean? So what have you found that is so surprising that would maybe be a universal law or something that you encountered that maybe you thought, it couldn't possibly fit into this realm? Something that, that isn't a man-made law, but something that you came across that is universally handed to you through your work.
I feel like for me, it comes back to that knowledge of transcendence. I mean, I've had personal experiences with it from the time that I was 16. If we were going to talk about awakening, I feel like my first awakening really did happen when I was about 16 years old. I had a ferret that I loved. She was passing away from cancer. And in a lot of ways, she was part of my soul group. She came to awaken me to various abilities within myself that I didn't yet have names for. And so on the day that she was passing, I had known that she had terminal cancer. Christmas had just passed. I lived in a small town. There wasn't access to the vet during that time because it was the holidays. And I remember just looking at her in the cage and hearing "die clean." And I didn't really make too much of it. I just saw in my mind bath. Okay. And I thought, oh, sure, I can give you a bath. Took her upstairs, prepared the bath, made it nice and warm for her, and was kind of massaging her with the soap. And then something else happened that I hadn't been aware of. I saw an image of myself holding her head under the water, and I freaked out. I flipped. I was terrified. And I thought, oh my God, how could I have thought that? That was horrendous. I was 16. Now, as an adult, I'm realizing she was suffering. That was a request. She was connecting with me telepathically. I didn't know what that was then. I didn't have words for that. I panicked. I took her out of the bath. I dried her off. I spent the whole night just connecting with her because I knew it was coming to a close. She didn't want to play. She was just sleeping on the pillow. At some point in the night, I moved her to the cage because I didn't want to roll over and squish her. And so sleeping with my hand in the cage, I remember waking up, but I wasn't fully awake. And there was a huge beam of light at the end of the bed. And I could see like a silhouette of her. And in my mind, I could hear, I love you. Thank you. I miss you already. Thank you for everything. The part that woke me up was I could hear my own soul speaking back to her, saying, I love you. I miss you. I wish I could have done more. And I knew in that moment that I should be sad. And I remember thinking, this is sad. She's dying. I should be sad. I couldn't get there, Kimla, because the unconditional love pouring through the light was so palpable that I could have cut it like a brick of cheese. And I realized, oh my God, this is what we are. This is where we come from. This is where we go back to.
Oh,
So that I feel like is my truth. And I feel like as many people as I can connect to that within themselves,
wow.
we illuminate this grid of light workers is how we begin to raise the consciousness on earth. This
Yeah.
is where we come from. This is who we are. That's where we go back to.
So you got a huge dose of universal love through your animal companion.
Yeah.
And that is why they're here, number one. But wow, and you were 16.
16. I was a weird kid after that. I mean, because there are no words for that. And so I couldn't take that information to my parents. I was afraid that they would think I was crazy. Here I was having an experience where I could feel all of her emotions. I could feel everything. I could see. I didn't know I was clairvoyant at that time. I didn't know I was empathic. I didn't know I could animal communicate or have telepathy. I didn't know that angels were all around. I didn't yet know them by name. There was a lot that I didn't know and I didn't figure out until much later when I started really researching and I had support from you and from all of the places that we came from.
Yeah.
It took a long time to put together. I think I keep hearing book and I'm just like, do I have to?
This is so funny because when you were talking before, I heard it too. And I was like, she doesn't seem to want me to say anything about her writing the book. This all went down in a split second. You probably heard it.
Well, I mean, that whole naiveness of what you're here to do as a person, and then you're like, oh, no, I do need to do this. Because if I can help one child out there begin to know why they're different, to know who they are,
Right,
it's enough. It's not about me. And I think that's what I needed to know was, okay, writing the book, it's not about me. I'm not one of those. It's for them.
right.
That I can do.
Right, right. Well, you've got a lot of creative expression, and also they're saying the way you put your words together, and now we call it spelling, of course. You know how you were talking about that that the words that you put together, even if it's a little fiction story, is something that subconsciously it's going to hit them. So that's a great way to go. Um, I I've always I loved the little book groups that we did when we published our stories and the wonderful results that we have, and our books were received very, very well. And it was so nice to be able to just take up a group that's experiencing the exact same thing you are, and everybody write about their experiences and then put them under one cover. And it was a good way for me to kind of break the ice on doing that. And I really did enjoy it after a while. It is an assignment. Just like life itself. Oh my gosh, what is my assignment? But it is an assignment. But I have a feeling that there's a lot of support around you for this creative expression in this time. But I feel that it isn't a fiction type. I don't feel like it's about a story about your clients'
Yeah.
experiences and things. You have that inside of you that you can express in a very childlike way. We all just felt it. So please do that. I think you need to let your heart desire that.
So
What is your heart's desire?
there are a couple of opportunities that want to come through. I've got this fantastic group of women who are all connected via the shamanic realms, and we are putting together a book together. And I had suggested each person talk about their call to the shamanic journey to be that healer, not shaman per se, but to be that one that walks between worlds, and what the call was, or the first experience. So that is coming. And then another thing that my angels are really just like poking and prodding on is kind of a biography, just so that through hearing my experiences, people can begin to identify their own.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful thing as well. A wonderful thing. I also feel like you know, at this stage of our journey, there's so many different things that we can get out there and put out to people, and I'm so glad that you shared yours. Do you do a yoga practice along with everything else that you do as well?
Yes, a little bit. So I'm not currently teaching, but I do bring the yogic influence, the paths into my coaching, into hypnosis. And so when I have a client who's having a specific challenge, I will guide them through various breath techniques. I will encourage them to take different postures. Just last Sunday, I had an empathic learning and support group coaching, and we took an energy break for a moment to do some of the Donna Eden exercises. And then I did find myself just leading through a little bit of yogic work to release some energy, to make some shifts.
Yeah, I'm hearing that's very powerful. On top of everything else that you get, this spiritual, ice cream sundae you do.
Ice cream sundaes, right?
Yeah, the cherry on top.
Yeah. And I think that's the main thing that we all need to look at as practitioners. So many of us are walking around saying, "What's my purpose? What's my purpose?" How cute that you think it's just one thing. It's never just one thing. We are meant to be so many things and all at once, because we are that potent. We are that powerful. We are that able.
Oh gosh, I totally agree. There's just some of us who really, open up more, and they're deeper dishes out there. You seem to be a roasting pan, my love.
I spend so much time on my own healing and my own self reflection. And I feel like because I do, I then have that capacity to be that larger vessel.
Right.
And there isn't just one modality that's going to work for everyone. And for some of us, it might take a
Right.
blend of modalities. And that's what I
Right.
love to do, is I love to make these integrative sessions that pull in many different kinds, so that I can speak the client's language, the language of their energy, to then make shifts. All of it ultimately is the subconscious mind.
Right.
Whether
Right.
it's mediumship or hypnosis or coaching, it doesn't matter. I'm going to the same place anyway. It's just learning the client's language on how they need to get there.
Right, absolutely. And my gateway, of course, was astrology. So for me, it was the language of the stars. And I just want to remind everyone that I am on my way to the Jersey Shore, and I am going to be March 2nd. I'm going to be giving readings. I am almost booked up, but I can probably expand my hours if you really want to come meet and greet and get a session with me. I would love to do that for you. You can go to my website, kimlalowe.com, and go ahead and make a booking there. I want to take just 1 second for our sponsor, freshandalive.com. This is a scalar energy tool. It's called a rest shield. And what this does is it produces scalar energy for longevity. Also, it's great um, for plant growth and for your pets, and also for the subconscious dream state as well. This is a rest shield, and what it does is it actually allows the blockages to dissolve while you are being supercharged in your dream state. So go to freshandalive.com, or you can go to my website and go to sessions and products and scroll all the way down. There's many different products there from Ken Rolla's freshandalive.com. I think you are really going to thank me later if you go ahead and purchase one of those items. And how do we get a hold of you, Miss Amanda?
So the best way is my website. It's www.healingbeyondtrauma.com. I am also doing sessions out of a sweet little shop in Akron called A Creative Apothecary. I'm there every Thursday for one-on-one sessions, but also we do group healing sessions and meditations in the Salt Cave, which is pure magic. This week is past life regression. It's fully booked. I believe the next one coming up is, I want to say, essentially visiting heaven, visiting a loved one who's passed away, which is deeply cathartic and beautiful.
Fabulous. And are you on social media?
Absolutely. On almost every platform that there is. I don't love it, but I do it to do what I love.
That's a good way to put it. That
Yeah.
really is a good way to put it. Now, did I hear you say that you work in a salt cave?
I do. I do. So that's known as helotherapy. And it can be very, very uplifting to do. The properties of the salt are very grounding. For one, they help us to balance a lot of the electric energy happening within our being. They turn on a little machine. It's then in the air. You're breathing it in, inhaling it. And it is the perfect space. We have little lounge chairs, so everyone gets comfortable in their spot. They've got a plush blanket. They relax, and I guide them through a magical place. Sometimes we do Akashic records. Sometimes it's soul retrieval. I've got new things coming up all the time, all the time, all the time. I'm also there actually next Sunday. We're going to be doing a learn self-hypnosis class. So there's always something on the schedule.
Wow. All righty. You are a busy gal.
I am, but I love it.
You love the salt life. I like that. I like that a lot. I love it. Thank you so much for being my special guest, Amanda, today. You are so delightful and just such pure joy. Thanks for sharing it with all of us. We sure do enjoy your energy. Please come back when you can guide us in a meditation. That would be really fun.
Yeah. I would be thrilled. You pick your date. I'll find a way to show up.
That might be a very fun thing to do, even if it's an additional show. We can put that in there as well. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming along with us for this hour. And as you know, 27 degrees SAG is exactly the point in your chart of the galactic center where we receive all the information from the universal source. So thank you so much. And until next time, may the angels protect you and guide you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.